Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so excited to welcome our next guests because they're going to talk about something that's really going to expand your mind. We are welcoming Rich Uhlig, who is the CEO of Quadrant Biosciences, and Kayla Wagner. She is the VP of Product Management. And you guys, let's start by talking about what is Quadrant Biosciences and what is it that you guys do that's so excited and makes my pulse race.
Well, first of all, thanks so much, Shannon, for having us on. We're really excited to be here. This is a great show.
Thank you.
Quadrant Biosciences is a company that we founded about 5 years ago. We look at epigenetic markers for a number of different neurological disorders. The most prominent one, and the one that we've received the most NIH funding for, has been related to autism spectrum disorder.
Okay, so that's a very interesting explanation, but for the average layperson, they're like, what does that mean? So explain to me, what does that mean? So you're looking at autism and your biosciences, but I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, well, I'll give a brief description, and then my colleague Kayla will jump in. But what is so exciting to me is that over the last 5 years, we've done so much clinical research around autism about a primary discovery that was made by researchers here at SUNY Upstate Medical University in finding that there are epigenetic molecules in the saliva that can very accurately differentiate children that are on the autism spectrum from not only neurotypical children, but also children that have developmental delays but not autism. So one of the big clinical challenges, of course, is that later differentiation. And we're really excited about this. We've received over $2 million of funding from the NIH, and we're really in the final days before we actually launch Clarify. And Clarify, it's spelled with an I at the end. Clarify is that epigenetic test that'll help clinicians make that determination.
Okay, so is it, if I scrunch this together and say that you are really close within this calendar year to having a swab test that you run around the inside of your child's cheek that can help to diagnose autism or to suggest that this child is at risk for autism? Am I in the neighborhood?
Yeah, so this is intended to be an aid to diagnosis so that clinicians, as they're making that evaluation of a child, if they have questions, we think that this will help push them over the edge. In our research, and we've tested well over 500 children at this point, in our research, the accuracy of this is in the mid-80s.
Wow.
So very strong indication that a child is on the spectrum.
Well, and clearly, you know, when you've got backing from the National Institutes for Health, you're doing something right. And you guys have a lot of backing from them. But let's talk about how Clarify can help the autism community by helping children to access early intervention and why that's so important.
Sure, that's a really great question. It's really quite important. We know that early intervention can lead to significant improvements and affect children with autism greatly by helping them thrive and achieve the quality of life that they deserve in numerous ways, in improving their cognitive functioning, their adaptive abilities, and their social skills, and just even allowing them to express language better. Clarify can help by expediting the diagnostic process and is really targeted toward being used in a pediatric setting or by a primary care physician or a family doctor as early as 18 months.
And that, folks, is the earth-shattering make my pulse go faster. Because so many of you are out there and have been through this that are watching the show right now that at 18 months, I mean, I'm just going to use my own story. At 18 months, I saw my son start to lose language. And I went to the pediatrician and said, something's going on. And she rolled her eyes at me and sent me away. And about a little more than a year later, when my son got a diagnosis, all I did, and my son is doing great, but I mourn that period of time in which we weren't getting services. And I'll be honest that part of my issues as a parent is I feel like maybe I needed to advocate more. Maybe I needed to do something. But we don't, as parents, often get listened to in the way that we need to get to that diagnosis quickly. Because as much as I love pediatricians, I think they don't want to overdiagnose. Sometimes they'll say, well, let's wait and see, which is never a good thing with autism. If we're behind with skills or losing skills, we need to play catch up. And I see this and go, what a wonderful way for that pediatrician to hear mom or dad's concerns, say, well, let's do this test. And if what you're seeing is this and what I'm seeing is this, and we have this test, let's stop debating it and let's get this child some early intervention. And at 18 months, if we can start getting early intervention for kids at 18 months, we can change the world. And I know that as a mom. But now,
Shannon,
yes.
If I could just add to this.
Yes.
We as a company, our primary mission is really to be in the service of others. And with respect to autism, we have every intention of changing the average age of diagnosis from between 4 and 5 years old to being in the second year of life, okay, for all the reasons that you just mentioned. And we think that Clarify is going to be a huge help in making that happen. And I just also want to, point out that, we're not just some little company that's located in Syracuse, New York. And anybody that's in our area, please come visit us. We love visitors. But we've been able to attract to our clinical advisory board some of the largest names in autism, including Diana Robbins, who's at Drexel and is the author of the MCHAT. Dan Corey, who's at Nationwide Children's Hospital. He's a developmental pediatrician and is the Chief Medical Officer for Autism Speaks. And even Kristen Soul, who's a pediatrician at the Thompson Center for Neurodevelopmental Disorders at the University of Missouri, and is the global founder and leader of Echo Autism, which also has the mission of educating pediatricians and clinicians so that they can make that earlier diagnosis.
I always say, thank goodness when there are brighter minds that are spending hours figuring out how to help our families, and you just have described some very heavy hitters. I want to clarify, though, and I didn't intend the pun, but let's use it, that because we have people on the show talking about genetic testing and reasons why people might want to do genetic testing. That's not what Clarify is. Explain to us, and I don't know which one of you it's more appropriate, but explain to us what you mean when you say it's an epigenetic test and how that's different than a genetics test.
Sure. So Clarify is an epigenetic test, and the molecules that we measure interact with gene expression. So to put it simply, a genetic test looks at your genetic sequence or the genetic code itself. Clarify has the ability of looking at molecules that interact with gene expression and therefore can impact behavior and brain development.
And this is pretty cutting edge here. How did this come about, you guys? How did you discover this? How did this come into being?
Well, our interaction with this was just good fortune. We've been doing a lot of work in traumatic brain injury as a company. And started working with two researcher clinicians here at Upstate, and one of whom is at Penn State College of Medicine now, Steve Hicks, who's an MD, PhD. His PhD mentor, Frank Middleton, had done pilot work on this topic starting in 2014. We saw the technology back then and realized how impactful this would be to millions of families around the world if this product were developed and brought to market. So we took a tremendous risk and got involved in this, and it's made really all the difference.
And I will just add that
yes.
The idea itself to investigate these molecules arise from clinical challenges. So Dr. Steve Hicks, if he was here to tell you himself, he would tell you that he had quite the struggle diagnosing children with autism sometimes in a primary care or pediatric setting, and therefore was interested in applying some of the knowledge of epigenetic information that he learned in his PhD training and applying it to the autism field itself.
And Shannon, one thing that you mentioned before is that this is not genetic testing. And genetic testing has got a role, but only about 10 to 20% of autism can really be explained by genetic testing, whether that be Fragile X, tuberous sclerosis, or some of the other syndromic causes. So we're really excited about being able to address some of the diagnostic challenges associated with idiosyncratic causes of autism, which is the vast majority of cases out there.
Well, I gotta say, I'm so excited about this. I'm excited for the families for this opportunity because we're at that interesting point in time where more families are getting early intervention than ever have before, but they're still having to fight for it. Sometimes they're having to fight with their insurance companies and they're having to justify having these services. And I think you guys have come to this place at the exact moment when the community needed you the most. So I thank you for that. But let's talk a little bit about, you're not quite there. I can't go get this test today. Give me the timeline. What are we looking at? How is this going to happen? And how are families going to get more information and access this as soon as it's available?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we expect to finish up the validation at our clinical lab in the coming days. And then following that, we are doing some additional system testing, and then the test will be commercially available, expected at the end of May.
At the end of May of this year. Because so often we talk, I wanted to reiterate that, because so often we talk about things that it's like, well, in the next decade. We're talking about at the end of May. That is so exciting. And then for a parent, we asked our pediatrician for this, or are we going to go to a website to get this ourselves? How is this going to work?
Yeah, the parents and clinicians both can get information from our website, clarifyasd.com. And again, clarify with an I at the end. There's a ton of information out there on our website, including the 7 peer-reviewed publications associated with Clarify, the most important of which is the validation paper, which strongly supports this particular test. Parents can't order it directly from us. This is something that they need to get from their pediatrician, but there's lots of information on the website on how to talk to your pediatrician or other clinician to have them order the test and have their child swabbed. Once the swab is taken, it takes about 3 to 6 weeks for it to be processed, and the results come back to the clinician. I also just want to say that we've partnered. One of the things that I saw in meeting with thousands of autism families is that autism parents, from what I've seen, have almost always had to find their own magic. What do they do after they get that diagnosis? Where do they get services, et cetera? We've done, I think, a great job in providing that information, providing also on the front end. We're about to put out a digital version of the MCHAT-R, so parents can kind of go through that basic screening mechanism, even on their own, send that to their pediatrician so that pediatrician is armed with that going into the 18 and 24-month checkup with the child. But then following the evaluation and following a diagnosis, we're providing access to great resources in their geographic area for early intensive behavioral intervention, as well as other services. So we're hoping to be able to provide people with a significant amount of information going into that.
I really respect the way you guys are doing this, and the fact that you're including that piece. So that, first of all, that it's a swab, so that we're not having to put a child through anything traumatic. There are people who just cannot get their child to be able to get a blood sample. I mean, that's a really big deal. So it's a swab. I love that. And I love the fact that you're not just going to leave them hanging once they have the diagnosis, that you will, make available to them ideas for resources, and please send them our way. Because our show is free and we like to give free information. We're almost out of time, so I want to go over the websites again, and we had it up on the screen for a minute. Where do they go for more information?
Go to clarifyasd.com. We've got a tremendous amount of information on that site. If they'd like to get more information about our company, it's quadrantbiosciences.com. We're a small company, but we're fierce.
You're moving mountains, and I appreciate it. It makes me emotional to think of what you are doing and what a difference it's going to make. I thank you so much from the bottom of my soul. And I just want to say to parents that are watching this, you know that so much of what happens, as you were saying, we have to make our own magic. We have to drive this. So don't shrink back. Be at your pediatrician and say to them, you know, I want this. And when the pediatrician says, I don't know about this, give them the website. Push your pediatrician to know about this, not just for your child, but for all the children that are coming after you. It's going to make a difference. Thank you both so much for being here. I hope your sunny Syracuse weather holds out. I was telling them before that I have lived in that area, and this is the time of year where it could be anything. You could still get snow. So bless your hearts. I hope you don't get any more snow. I hope you just move into the beautiful spring that I know is possible in that area. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Shannon.
Shannon, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. You got to stay in touch with us. Let us know when you're doing your launch date, will you please?
Yeah,
We will.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye,
You
everyone.
too.